America's best days are yet to come. That's because conservatives like you know and live the values our great country was built on. The Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard in the D.C. swamp each day, shining the light on a bright future. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. We're going to move fast here. I've encouraged you to take a look at my book, American Marxism, from 4 years ago, to get a feel for what's taking place today. It's actually quite prescient. But it's not hard to be prescient when you're looking at Marxism or fascism or those things, because the world has experienced them. The question is, here, we've not experienced them. And in Chapter 2, I talk about breeding mobs. Now, even though I'm writing about American Marxism, as you'll see, it would apply to any kind of ism that is totalitarian in nature. This is Chapter 2, Breeding Mobs. Many of you have the book. Mass movements that tend to devour the individual in two ways. Now, I want you to be thinking of Mondami, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Marxism, Islamism. I also want you to be thinking of the fascists and neo-fascists, who I've been exposing as thoroughly as possible. I want you to be thinking about Fuentes and Bannon and Alex Jones and Tucker and their supporters who give them a free ride, the Megyn Kellys of the world and those people. Mass movements attempt to devour the individual in two ways. Consume his identity and uniqueness, thereby making him indistinguishable from the masses, but also assigning him a group identity based on race, age, income, etc., to draw class distinctions. This way, the demagogues and propagandists can speak to the well-being of the people as a whole while dividing them against themselves, thereby stampeding them in one direction or another, as necessary to collapse the existing society or rule over the new one. And who among us is attracted to such mass movements? Again, I noted in my prior book, Meritopia, a receptive audience is found among the society's disenchanted, disaffected, dissatisfied, and maladjusted, who are unwilling or unable to assume responsibility for their own real or perceived conditions, but instead blame their surroundings, the system, and others. They are lured by the false hopes and promises of utopian transformation and the criticisms of the existing society, to which their connection is tentative or non-existent. Improving the malcontent's lot becomes linked to the utopian cause. Moreover, disparaging and diminishing the successful and accomplished becomes an essential tactic. No one should be better than anyone else, regardless of the merits or value of his contribution. And by exploiting human frailties, frustrations, jealousies, and inequities, a sense of meaning and self-worth is created in the malcontent's otherwise unhappy and directionless life. As you can see, this applies to the Marxists and the fascists. Furthermore, in mass movements, the individual is inconsequential as a person, useful only as an insignificant part of an amalgamation of insignificant parts. He is a worker, part of a mass, nothing more, nothing less. His existence is soulless. Absolute obedience is the highest virtue. After all, only an army of drones is capable of building a rainbow to paradise. Almost a century ago, French philosopher and essayist Julien Benda observed that mass movements form frequently around individuals who share the same political hatred. Got that? The same political hatred. He wrote, thanks to the progress of communication and still more to the group spirit, it's clear that the holders of the same political hatred now form a compact, impassioned mass, every individual of which feels himself in touch with the infinite numbers of others, whereas a century ago such people were comparatively out of touch with each other and hated in a scattered way. I've been talking about the podcasting and the internet, ladies and gentlemen, and the dangers it poses. There's simply no question about that. He said, be asserted that these coherences will tend to develop still further. For the will to group is one of the most profound characteristics of the modern world. He wrote this 100 years ago. Which even in the most unexpected domains, for instance, the domain of thought, is more and more becoming the world of leagues, of unions, and of groups. It is necessary to say that the passion of the individual is strengthened by the feeling itself in proximity to these thousands of similar passions. The individual bestows a mystic personality on the association of which he feels himself a member, and gives it a religious adoration, which is simply the deification of his own passion and no small stimulants to its intensity. That's genius, don't you think, Mr. Producer? Benda also concluded that such movements, because that's what's going on today, right now. Benda also concluded that such movements are often cult-like. He wrote, the coherence just described might be called a surface coherence, but there is added to it a coherence of essence, for the very reason that the holders of the same political passion form a more compact, impassioned group. They also form a more homogeneous, impassioned group, which the individual ways of feeling disappear. The zeal of each member more and more takes on the color of the others. And so you see this Jew hatred. You see this Christian hatred. You see this American hatred. And it builds on it and builds on it. It builds on itself. Absolute brilliance. But let's go on. I wrote nearly a decade ago that these mass movements, that is I wrote that, are intolerant of diversity, uniqueness, debate, for their purpose requires a singular focus. There can be no competing voices or causes slowing or obstructing society's long and righteous march. They rely on deceit, propaganda, dependence, intimidation, and force. And I go on in that regard. Let me continue. I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but I think it's very, very important. If you have the book, just dust it off. 70 years ago, Eric Hoffer wrote an iconic book, The True Believer, and I even mentioned him in my first Liberty and Tyranny. On the nature of mass movements, Hoffer explained that mass movements are built of deeply flawed individuals with deeply flawed ideas. He noted that, quote, a mass movement attracts and holds a following not because it can satisfy the desire for self-advancement, but because it can satisfy the passion for self-renunciation. People who see their lives as irredeemably spoiled cannot find a worthwhile purpose in self-advancement. They look on self-interest as something tainted and evil, something unclean and unlucky. Anything undertaken under the auspices of the self seems to them foredoomed. Nothing that has its roots and reasons in the self can be good and noble. Moreover, most mass movements, I write, are angry and gloomy movements, hostile toward well-adjusted, happy, and successful individuals, among others. Indeed, I write later, there is a kind of psychotic pleasure and excitement in wrecking the present-day society, including, if not especially, one as free, humane, tolerant, and virtuous as ours. Let's see. What surprises one when listening to the frustrated as they decry the present and all it works, writes Hoffer, is the enormous joy they derive from doing so. Such delight cannot come from the mere venting of a grievance. By expatiating upon the incurable baseness and vileness of the times, the frustrated soften their feeling of failure and isolation. Thus, by deprecating the present, they acquire a vague sense of equality. The cause itself becomes the reason for one's existence, as Hoffer pointed out. The means a mass movement uses to make the present unpalatable strike a responsive chord in the frustrated. The self-mastery needed in overcoming their appetites gives them an illusion of strength. They feel that in the mastering themselves, they have mastered the world. One gains the impression that the frustrated derive as much satisfaction, if not more, from the means a mass movement uses as from the end it advocates. My God, is that true? Thus, Hoffer is describing a fanatic and fanaticism. He says the fanatic's passionate attachment is the essence of his blind devotion and religiosity, and he sees in it the source of all virtue and strength. Though his single-minded dedication is a holding on for dear life, he easily sees himself as the supporter and defender of the holy cause to which he clings. These would be Fuentes and the Gropers, and the people who subscribe to Carlson and Bannon. These would be the Marxists, the Islamists, the people who vote for Mondami and his ilk. Hoffer explains it this way: the fanatic cannot be weaned away from his cause by an appeal to his reason or moral sense. Let me repeat that. The fanatic cannot be weaned away from his cause by an appeal to his reason or moral sense. Again, this is in Chapter 2 in American Marxism. He fears compromise and cannot be persuaded to qualify the certitude and righteousness of his holy cause. His passionate attachment is more vital than the quality of the cause to which he is attached. He continues to live without an ardent, dedication is to be adrift and abandoned. He sees intolerance a sign of weakness, frivolity, and ignorance. He hungers for the deep assurance which comes with total surrender, with a wholehearted clinging to a creed and a cause. Sorry, I have to read with a magnifying glass. What matters is not the content, is not the contents of the cause, but the total dedication and communion with the congregation. The fanatic comes from all walks of life and all backgrounds. You can look at George Soros. You can look at others. Like Benda, Hoffer sees the fanatic and the mass movement as centered on an intense, if not obsessive, hatred. He says, passionate hatred can give meaning and purpose to an empty life. Thus, people haunted by the purposelessness of their lives try to find a new content, not only by dedicating themselves to a holy cause, but also by nursing a fanatical grievance. A mass movement offers them unlimited opportunities for both. Indeed, I write, the dangerousness of this hatred, when tied to a cause, can have calamitous societal and human consequences. It leads to scapegoating, balkanization, violence, and in its more aggressive form, ethnic cleansing, I write. More broadly and simultaneously, this hatred seeks to malign, debase, debauch, and ultimately topple the status quo and the civil society. I'd say this is on mark, don't you, Mr. Producer? In the end, if such mass movements succeed, the result is totalitarianism. Hannah Arendt, who I cite in several of my books, but I'm pointing it out here in American Marxism, genius writer, philosopher. She suffered through the Holocaust. And she writes, "The attraction of evil and crime for the mob mentality is nothing new. It has always been true that the mob will greet deeds of violence with the admiring remark, quote, 'It may be mean, but it's very clever,' unquote. The disturbing factor in the success of totalitarianism is rather the true selflessness of its adherents. In point of fact, I write, mass movements are the necessary precursors to building revolutions and overthrowing governments. In the immediate instance, our own republic, by various and competing tactical approaches. But as described earlier, there is a commonality, an essential methodology to this counter-revolution and societal transformation. And that is the voice and the view of a collective." And I go on in excruciating detail throughout the book, especially this chapter. And this chapter, not by accident, I titled Breeding Mobs. And we are breeding mobs. We are breeding Marxist Islamists, and we are breeding fascists. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. I hope this information that I'm conveying you find useful because it affects you and the country, and I try to draw from people who have written before and have experienced these things firsthand, and then apply it to present day in a way that you and I not only can understand, but realize what's taking place. I see some of our friends, columnists and others, are writing well about what's taking place. Not enough, but several. And I'm impressed with the fact about what many of them are saying, but they are going over ground we've already gone over. And the problem now is, what do we do about this? And I think what we do about it is what we're doing right here and what I'm doing on other platforms, which is confront it. And the individuals who have popularized themselves and enriched themselves in promoting this are playing with dynamite. And I personally have an obligation to call them out and confront them. And I feel with you, an army of millions, that we can overcome this on the left and the neo-Nazi right. We're coming upon the 250th birthday of the United States, and it has me thinking, what will America look like 250 years from now? My friends at the Heritage Foundation want to know what you think. What policies should America prioritize? What principles should carry us into the decades ahead? As America enters a new golden age, Heritage recognizes that this is the time to take stock and to be intentional about how we shape the future of America. And they can't do it without your input. So please go to heritage.org/LEVIN and let them know what you think is important. Without patriots like you stepping up and speaking up for what you believe in, America as we know it can't survive for for another 250 years. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Take the survey on America's future. This survey takes less than 10 minutes to complete, but it is critical for making sure that the America we pass on to future generations is an America we're proud of. Go to heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin, the voice liberals fear most. And you can call Mark at 877-381-3811.
And Marxists, Islamists, and fascists, too, I would argue, Mr. Producer. All right, hold on, folks. I just meant to hit one other thing here. Come on. There we go. Breeding Mobs is the title of the chapter. Breeding Mobs. Given the injustices, prejudices, and inequality imposed by society's dominant groups against so-called oppressed groups, at least this is the mentality, the oppressed groups must awaken to their inferior status, become politically aware, and then rise up in protest and even revolution against the existing society. And you see this with the Marxists and the fascists, of course. The oppressed must be encouraged to rise up and join in protest and even revolution. And this is pretty much what you're hearing from podcasters. Ultimately, these arguments for collective identity, collective beliefs, and class consciousness in support of mass movements, wittingly or otherwise, have a Marxist formulation, even for the fascists, and form the basis not only for peaceful protests, but violence, riots, and revolution. And that's what's being urged by both. That's what's being urged by both. And when your goal is to overthrow a country, that means the goal is to overthrow you. You're the country. I've been banging the pots and pans. I've been ringing the bells. I've been beeping the horn, and I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep doing it because it is an enormous necessity with a large vacuum. I explain certain aspects of this in the book On Power. The use of language to distort, to manipulate, to mislead, to control. Podcasters are good at that. They're good at very little else. They've accomplished very little else in their lives. They've been, for the most part, propagandists their entire careers. Regardless of the platform, they've never done anything else, many of them. You can see that with Carlton. You can see that with Fuentes. You can see that with Kelly. You can see that with Jones. That's all they've ever done. That's all they've ever done. And so they're masters at propaganda. They're masters at manipulation. They're masters at deceit, in my humble opinion. That's what they do. Propaganda is the reasoned use of historical and scientific arguments to indoctrinate. To indoctrinate. Not to educate, but to indoctrinate. Language has many purposes. At its core, language is about communication, of course, and many types of communication, many purposes for it. I talk about the power of language and the power over language. In Chapter 4 of On Power, again, the distinction has been discussed over the ages and in recent times. That said, I use them to make certain fundamental points, understanding that they are distinguishable in significant ways. The pursuit and maintenance of negative power, and that's what we're talking about here, require the utilization of negative techniques of communication, including manipulation, deception, repetition, deceit, concealment, distraction, and fear-mongering, in language that is intimidating, self-serving, and orchestrated. It is an approach that seeks to arouse prejudices and and stifle independent thought. The purpose is to exert power over language, and to control the population without moral reservations. That's exactly what's taking place. Indeed, morality itself is said to be relative or nothing but an abstraction. Hamas is not a terrorist group, it's a political organization. Concealing the rot, they argue, of open societies and democracies, and obfuscating the exploitation of the people. In the political context, when language is applied this way, it strikes a central part of a democratic system, denying the body politic information with which to make knowledge qualitative and to make collective societal decisions. Of course, this is the intention of its practitioners. Moreover, communication of this sort exists for the purpose of arousing and angering the citizenry and exhorting them to action that is destructive of the existing society and their own lives and lifestyles in service to the demagogue and his aims. And inasmuch as the people and their consent are the only legitimate and just source of government, the entire enterprise becomes corrupt and malevolent. Citizens acquiesce to it, regurgitate it, or even demand it where applicable, vote for it, believing there's no other course or that it is the best course until it's too late to reverse course without an abrupt and often violent revolt. But for many, suffering persists for an extended period of time. So I've been writing about this threat to our country and free countries for some time, going all the way back to the earliest books. But I thought I would underscore the point this evening. So when you're listening to people, or you're on the internet reading what they have to say, understand what's going on. Cut through it. If something sounds strange, it is. If something sounds immoral, it is. If something sounds controlling and manipulative and misleading, it is. It doesn't matter who it's coming from. It's these things and more. So I'm just encouraging you to please keep this in mind, because right now I think we have an epidemic, maybe even a pandemic, of so-called influencers, podcasters, and not just podcasters, video casters, I guess you call them, who fall into this rank, who are making a fortune, a fortune, lying to you, deceiving you, manipulating you about the most basic things. The Bible, Christianity, Jews, World War II, Hitler versus Churchill. Go down the list. And they're doing this intentionally, and they're doing this to try and bring down this society. They have no intention of helping anybody. They have no intention, or actually they have no connection with you. They're trying to create something that's been created many times in the past. What Eric Hoffer was talking about, what Arendt was talking about, what others are talking about, what I've been writing about and talking about. This exists. Now we're going to move on next hour, and we have some great guests. Governor Greg Abbott he wanted to come on and discuss a few things. We have Professor Emeritus, University of California, Santa Cruz, John Ellis, who wrote a brilliant piece in the New York Post. He says it's time to put these colleges in a receivership, a form of receivership, and address this issue in the faculty, because it's not going to be addressed by any agreements by them, that is the schools, or anything of the sort, and this poison and this propaganda is going to continue. It's not about free speech. It's about who controls these institutions. And I think that's exactly right. In fact, I know it is. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. All right, I'm going to comment on the Epstein matter, just to show you how disgusting this leak from the Democrats is and the Republicans who are piling on. They put out an email, Mr. Producer, where they redact the name Virginia Dupree. Everybody knows it's Virginia Dupree. It's an email that's insinuating that Donald Trump spent a lot of time with her and that there was something that may have taken place there. The problem is, in 2016 and since, Virginia Dupree herself, on the record, has said that Donald Trump was never involved in anything untoward with her, any kind of behavior or conduct. She didn't witness anything that took place, period. So the question that's being asked is, then why did the Democrats redact her name, Mr. Producer? To try and create a scandal. And so when you have Republicans on Capitol Hill and you have podcasters and phony influencers jumping all over this like there's something here, there's literally nothing here. Trump kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago decades ago because he was being a sleazeball to his female employee, so he threw him out. And he was being a sleazeball to Jeffrey. Virginia Giuffre. Not Dupree, Giuffre. So the whole thing is to concoct conversation, and we've been through this stuff before. The Russia hoax, this is a hoax. If there was anything on Donald Trump, it would be leaked. So instead, they redact the name of this woman, Virginia Giuffre, who has said that nothing happened, said nothing happened. They redact the name of this alleged victim, that's her. That's her, to create the impression that there's something wrong. And that's their strongest email. Then you have emails where you have an author. You have an author, this guy Wolf, who writes these gossip books, Michael Wolf, who's advising Epstein on how to damage Trump, on how to get the goods on him. And there's other journalists who would appear to be advising Epstein on what to do. So this is why I just don't spend a ton of time on this. You're going to have ignoramuses, podcasters of all stripes, who are going to be going on and on and on and on about this. And as far as releasing files, it's the president of the White House itself that said, go ahead, release all the grand jury information. And the reason they're saying that is there are real victims. Epstein was a monster. A monster. There are real victims. Real victims. But there aren't any as a result of Donald Trump, because they would have come out by now. There's not a single podcaster of any stripe or single, manipulator of any kind that can name any. And so they redact the name of Virginia Giuffre, the so-called unnamed victim, who spent hours with President Trump, when she has said for years there was nothing untoward about his behavior or conduct or anything else. And it was Trump, after learning about Jeffrey Epstein's behavior, banned him from Mar-a-Lago. So they're trying to create an error. Well, let's release all the files, Well, they're leaking what they think are the most important parts. I don't care if it's released or not. Doesn't matter to me. But that's not the point. The point is this clearly is intended to change the narrative from this failed shutdown and the withholding of food stamps and everything led by the Democrats. The Democrats are expert propagandists and manipulators. Expert. And you're going to see this times a million should they win the House of Representatives back like they did last time. And you're going to see it all attached to impeachment. You even have some of these low-life, so-called podcasters of fake MAGA, as well as the left, coming to, this could be impeachment. What could be impeachment? Mr. Producer, what? So there's no controversy here as applies to Trump. One of the controversies that seems to be ignored all the time is Bannon, who was apparently advising Epstein on how to deal with this crisis. There are videos of this, I believe, that Bannon had produced, and he won't release those. The confessed felon will not release his videos. And so, again, we have these damnable, phony journalists like this Michael Wolff, who's an author too, advising Epstein on how to damage Trump. I want you to realize that dog that hasn't barked is Trump, he says. Victim one in the email, it's redacted, and it's this woman I just told you about, spent hours at my house with him, and he has never once been mentioned. That is Trump. But it has been mentioned. And victim one was not victimized by Donald Trump. How do we know? She said so. Years and years ago and since. And so you have all these reports on this. You have all these podcasts. They live on this stuff. They just want to gin it up. I need eyes. I need subscriptions. I am righteous. Release the stuff. I am righteous. I call them as I see them. I am righteous. I call balls and strikes. No, you're not. You're frauds, phonies, and fools who don't have the guts to stand up. Who don't have the guts to stand up and to fight it. I do. I try to ignore it. But it's, this point I have to respond to this. Let's see here if I can get the exact quote. She was deposed in 2016 and denied that Donald Trump assaulted her, had sex with her, was untoward, treated him badly, period. And she said that under oath. Categorically denied it. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Let me address this again. Just because there's a lot of a-holes out there who are lying to you, both Democrats and Republicans. The Epstein case. As even pointed out by Factually.com, calm here. Virginia Giuffre's sworn deposition in 2016 and later public accounts consistently deny that Donald Trump sexually assaulted or had sex with her, while confirming she worked at Mar-a-Lago and met Trump there. Her posthumous memoir and reporting add context but do not allege criminal conduct by Donald Trump. Media coverage and statements from Trump and his defendants have emphasized different narratives. Trump saying Epstein stole workers from Mar-a-Lago, Giuffre's family expressing shock, Giuffre's own account stressing encounters, but never implicating Trump in any of it. And what she said under oath, the clear denial. In her deposition testimony, it's been repeatedly cited, she denied that Donald Trump flirted with her, had sex with her, or was involved in sexual encounters with any girls who were in Epstein's network during the time she knew Epstein. Now, this categorical denial is central to the factual record and was reported in coverage of her 2016 deposition released publicly years later. And the testimony also confirmed more prosaic facts. She worked as a locker room or spa attendant at Mar-a-Lago around 2000, met President Trump there on multiple occasions. Those work and meeting details are corroborated across her memoir and reporting, but importantly, the deposition separates attendance and acquaintance from any allegation of wrongdoing by Trump. Any allegation. Her posthumous memoir and interviews elaborate on her early life, her work at Mar-a-Lago, encounters with high-profile figures, including the president, or then just Trump, Prince Andrew, Maxwell, and it does not accuse Trump of sexual misconduct, instead depicting him as part of the social backdrop of Mar-a-Lago in 2000. And that, I don't know what else to say, Mr. Producer. It's hard to know what else can you say? It is a hoax. And so the Democrats release an email and they redact Virginia Giuffre's name to try and create the impression that they're protecting her or protecting her reputation from Trump when she's testified under oath, when she has said so publicly, that nothing ever happened, not even a flirtation, not even once. And that, of course, is a hoax. The release of this today, and the media running wild with it. It's a hoax. And they're going to keep up with it because what else do they have? Seriously, what else do they have? They don't have anything. This is who they are. And let's see here if I can find. So there's nothing that the Democrats released that create any kind of scandal of any kind, as a matter of fact, period. Nothing. And yet, release the files. You got nothing because there is nothing. We have this guy Whitehouse, who's a senator from Rhode Island. He's a real lowlife. He's despicable. Says there were more than 8 Democrats who wanted to end the shutdown. So he kind of let the cat out of the bag. On MSLSD's Last Word, which nobody ever watches, Sheldon Whitehouse said that there were more than 8 Democrats in the Senate who wanted to join with Senate Republicans and vote to end the government shutdown, and would have possibly stepped up if one of the 8 Democrats who ultimately voted the way they voted hadn't done so. And he defended Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer by saying that the Senate isn't the same as the House because members of the Senate have more independence, because a leadership switch in the middle of a fight is a bad strategy. He added that Schumer also had a bigger number of senators to deal with than 8. He had the 3 you mentioned, he says to the interviewer, who had never voted to stop the continuing resolution. He had the 5 who voted and changed that day, but Senator Tim Kaine has said publicly that there were another 5 or 6 that were waiting in the wings and that were encouraging them. One of them had not voted. Somebody else might have stepped in to make the 8th vote. So our caucus had a bigger problem than just 8. Now, that said, they are going to vote in the House, but there are 2 issues. The Republicans added in their language that those who were part of the illegal spy effort by rogue, unconstitutional prosecutor Jack Smith could sue the government for compensation. And people are upset with this, saying they should have stuck any language in there. I don't really care. What do you think of that, Mr. Producer? I don't really care. Well, why should they get money? Well, because they were spied on. That's why. I'm just saying. But it's not a big, principled issue with me that should determine a vote one way or the other. It's just not. That's just my opinion. So the Speaker has to deal with that. He's not happy with what the Senate did. He just wanted to get a vote on what they sent over to the Senate. And apparently this language was put in. And we've got at least one, maybe 2, but I think one member from Florida who's saying, I think it's Stubbe, who we like, I'm not voting for this unless you take it out. Okay, great. Now, how are you going to do that? In other words, that's what was sent back. Then you have Hakeem Jeffries, who is just a disaster, just awful. And he's in the position where, according to the House rules, apparently, he can essentially conduct his own filibuster, not in terms of the voting totals, but in terms of the time he can have on the floor and talk. In other words, he can talk forever if he wants to. And the thinking is, and the understanding is, that he's going to talk for a while, maybe not all through the night. But for those of you people in the government, those of you in the government who are upset about what's taking place, why do you take it out on the Republicans? It's incoherent. It's irrational. Is it just because you're a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat? What is it exactly? This was done by the Democrats. So if you're upset with this, if you're not getting food stamps and you're upset with it, or some other program and you're upset with it, then at least have enough common sense to understand who you're upset with. And if you're not upset with the Democrats, well, then good. You deserve what you got. Because you're blaming the Republicans who tried to get this thing through and fought it day and night, and then had 14 or 15 votes in the Senate where it was voted down. Then it's on you and your party. You and your party. And you got Gavin Newsom, who's destroyed the greatest state in the country. I mean that. With the greatest wealth, geography, opportunities, destroyed it. It's not the greatest anymore. Here we have our friends at Breitbart, one of the great sites. Gavin Newsom shames Democrats who caved in shutdown battle, pathetic capitulation and a betrayal. This guy's such a punk. He's such a demagogue, this guy, and he's a moron to boot. Just a clown. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
There's a reason I'm proud to say Pure Talk is my wireless company, because they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk, especially when it comes to supporting our veterans. This month, Pure Talk is choosing to support Canines for Warriors, an incredible organization that rescues and trains dogs, then pairs them with veterans struggling with PTSD. These are men and women who serve with honor, but when they come home, their brotherhood and support network they had in the military too often disappears. Canines for Warriors steps up to fill the gap, giving these heroes purpose, companionship, and healing. That's exactly why Pure Talk, a veteran-led company, supports them. Choose a wireless company that shares your values, and with talk, text, and plenty of 5G data for just $25 a month, you could also be saving a ton of money. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch today. Again, go to puretalk.com/LEVIN and switch to America's wireless company, my wireless company, Pure Talk. This group CARE, in my view, is one of the great public enemies in this country. It's a front group. It's always been a front group. CAIR. And, of course, they've been very close to the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party's given them political sustenance and oxygen, has pulled them into their administrations when they have the White House. The FBI has used them. And this is part of the enemy within crowd. CARE Ohio director, the great Breitbart site, Mandami victory, a, quote, referendum on Palestinian resistance, coup against Democrat establishment. Look how, I mean, they're out in the open now, folks. The executive director of the Council on American Islamic Relations Ohio chapter described the election of New York City's new socialist mayor, a.k.a. Marxist Islamist, Zohran Mamdani, as both a, quote, coup, unquote, against the Democratic Party elites, and, quote, a referendum, unquote, on Palestinian and Lebanese resistance. That's Hamas and Hezbollah. So they support Hamas and Hezbollah. They hate America, the American establishment, they call it, but they really mean Western society. It's a referendum, framing the victory as a political and ideological revolt against the American establishment. Khalid Turani made the remarks on Lebanon's Mayadeen TV the day after Mamdani's election. According to a video released by Memory, I've told you this Memory site is essential, MEMRI.org, MEMRI.org. Folks, check it out every day, MEMRI.org. They monitor these guys. They have interpreters who take these languages, whether it's Arabic or Farsi or whatever the hell it is, and they interpret it in English for us. Very, very, very important, I think. Very important. Let's go on. I believe Zohran Mamdani represents an opposition to the entire American deep state, he says. Through his historic victory, which is unprecedented in modern times, Mamdani has defeated the traditional Democratic Party. He cited Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's refusal to endorse Mamdani as evidence of the establishment's hostility, calling the New York Democrat a Zionist, first of all, and a Jewish New Yorker who withheld support despite representing the same city. You see the Jew hatred? That's tied to the America hatred. So Mamdani's victory constitutes a coup against the entire political establishment, which is represented by someone like Andrew Cuomo. It is also a coup against the Democratic Party, which tried and succeeded in 2015 to push aside Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who was a similar case to Zohran Mamdani. There you have it, the Marxist-Islamist fusion that I've been talking about. People call it green-red. I don't know what they call it, but I've been writing about this for years and years and years. I don't need the colors green and red. It's Marxist-Islamist. Turani of CARE warned that the Democratic Party elite will do everything in their power to make Zohran Mamdani fail. You see, they're already setting up for his failure. It's not going to be his fault that the guy is a Marxist nutjob. It'll be the fault of the system. I hear people say all the time, well, you know, the Marxists, the communists, they always say, well, we'll try again and it'll work. We'll try again and it'll work. If they read Ameritopia, they would know I've made this point over and over again in Ameritopia. That they have to personalize the failure. They cannot allow their ideology to be the failure, and they're never going to. These are tyrants. These are totalitarians. All right, we have with us the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. Governor, how are you, sir?
Doing great, man. You're spot on as usual. There's a reason why you're the great one, and you were just articulating it right there. Well,
thank you, Governor. And you're pretty great yourself. I wanted to talk to you about this Islamist center, 150,000 square feet opening up in Houston, and then you have this other center that's trying to open up in Plano, Texas. It looks like your state is targeted. I believe they want to target like a Mamdani result in order to try and radicalize the population and try to turn people out and try to turn a red state into a blue state. Am I right? And what can be done about it? And what are you doing about it?
Well, actually, to be honest with you, I think I'm doing more about it than any other governor in America because, we all know what happened with Mandami and the Marxist regime he's imposing there, and we're not going to let it happen here. Let me quickly tell you what we've done. So you mentioned that it's called the Epic Center up in the Dallas area that we just shut down. Let me tell you what it was and what we did. Epic, they proposed an Islamic-only development, and I signed a law that we passed here this past session that prevents compounds like Epic City from even being created. What it did, it banned them from creating no-go zones. It prevented them from selling or renting land only to people who follow Islam. Mm-hmm. It requires that disputes be brought under Texas laws and courts, not under Sharia law, and it empowers the Attorney General in Texas to shut down developments like that. I want you to know, as we're talking right now, we have ongoing investigations by the Attorney General, by the Texas Rangers, by the Fair Housing Agency, by the Texas State Securities Board, by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, to make sure that this attempted Epic Center up in the Dallas area is never going to get off the ground. To be clear, Texas law and Texas courts are the only law that governs our residents, our businesses, and our neighborhoods. And Mark, the last thing on top of all that, previously I signed a law saying that Sharia law does not apply in Texas. And then furthering that, both you and I are very much constitutionalist. Mm-hmm. Texas has a very precise constitution. In Article 1, Section 1 of our Constitution, it says that only Texas and United States law apply in our state, no other law. And then Article 1, Section 6 says that no one can have religious beliefs forced on them. It doesn't say Sharia law, but any type of law like that. No religious belief can be forced on anybody in the state of Texas. So we got it covered from our Constitution, from laws that are signed, from law enforcement that are working on it as we speak.
You're really a fantastic governor. I got to say, you've been out front on immigration, you've been out front on taxes, you're out front on this Marxist Islamist crap. You really have done a good job. I mean, and under incredibly difficult circumstances, when the Biden regime was in office, they were violating federal immigration law, and you were enforcing federal immigration law. And you're running for re-election, correct?
Absolutely. Just announced I'm running for re-election. I got to tell you, that one of the last things that you mentioned is one of the things that we're running on, and that is what we did on immigration. So in addition to all of that, in addition to building our own border wall, in addition to deploying 5,000 National Guard, I also signed a law that authorizes every law enforcement officer in Texas to arrest anybody here illegally, and allows law enforcement to send back across the border anybody.
Can I hold you through the break, because I want to talk to you further, including about your election and the president's endorsement and taxes, what you've done there. I mean, it needs to be heard. We're heard all over the state of Texas. So we'll be right back. There's a reason I'm proud to say Pure Talk is my wireless company, because they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk, especially when it comes to supporting our veterans. This month, Pure Talk is choosing to support Canines for Warriors, an incredible organization that rescues and trains dogs, then pairs them with veterans struggling with PTSD. These are men and women who serve with honor, but when they come home, their brotherhood and support network they had in the military too often disappears. Canines for Warriors steps up to fill the gap, giving these heroes purpose, companionship, and healing. That's exactly why Pure Talk, a veteran-led company, supports them. Choose a wireless company that shares your values, and with talk, text, and plenty of 5G data for just $25 a month, you could also be saving a ton of money. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch today. Again, go to puretalk.com/LEVIN and switch to America's wireless company, my wireless company, Pure Talk.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
We're here with the great governor of Texas, and he is great, Greg Abbott, who's running for re-election. Before I get to that, Governor, you are promoting also a major property tax relief plan. You don't have an income tax in Texas, so you're now focused on the property taxes there. Tell us what you have in mind.
Well, listen, we got to make housing more affordable in Texas, and one of the most unaffordable parts of housing in Texas is the property taxes. And so we have a multi-point plan of solutions. It's complicated in Texas because the state itself does not impose a property tax. Mm-hmm. Only local governments impose property taxes. And so we actually use $51 billion of the state budget to try to buy down property tax rates. But, Mark, what happens is these local governments, they just go behind our back and raise taxes even more. Mm-hmm. So point number one is we have to stop local governments from all of the reckless spending that is the cause of property taxes in the first place. Second, we want to ensure that no one is going to be taxed without voter approval. And I want not just voter approval, but in every request to increase property taxes, it should receive 2/3 vote. Third is we want to empower voters to actually roll back their property tax rates, to impose their own property tax cut in their own community. And then in Texas, we have skyrocketing appraisals, and we want to rein those in. Right now, there's an allowance of allowing your appraisal to increase 10% per year, which is shocking to people when they see their appraisal. And we want to limit that to an appraisal not every year, but once only 5 years, and let it increase no more than 3%. And then finally, Mark, we just had multiple constitutional amendments on our ballot last week in Texas to rein in property taxes. I want one more constitutional amendment to pass, and that is giving voters the ability to not have to pay anything on their school district property tax in Texas. Instead, Texas, as a state, will be responsible for that bill. That one alone would reduce property taxes by about 2/3 of the property tax bills that people get.
Yeah, because 2/3 goes to the schools.
Right.
Well, that's a wonderful plan. I'm a resident of Florida, but I also live in Virginia, and Virginia's gone to hell. Now the Democrats have taken over. It's going to be they're going to be unbounded. Now, President Trump likes you a lot, doesn't he? He's endorsed you, a full-throated endorsement, right?
I tell you what, it was strong and very generous and very kind of him. I've enjoyed working with him, and among other things, especially on the border, making sure we secure that border. But he and I have developed a really good relationship, and I was very proud when his endorsement came out last night.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't beat that, but I'd be more than happy. I'm going to endorse you myself because I think you're a great governor. Very important.
That's great.
Very, very important. What you're doing there is really important for the country, too. The congressional districts and everything else, Governor. You deserve it. You deserve the support of Levinites throughout Texas, conservatives throughout Texas, Republicans throughout Texas. You're not going to do any better than Greg Abbott. I can tell you that right now. So we wish you all the best, and we want you to come back.
Well, thank you. Definitely thank you for your endorsement. And we're going to come back. We're going to win, and we'll come back on the Mark Levin Show again. But just very much appreciate your endorsement. You're very generous.
Now, if people want to help out, where do they go, Governor?
Very easy. GregAbbott.com. GregAbbott.com.
Doesn't get any easier. All right. Well, we're going to put that up on our social sites. Let's help out the governor. We have to help out the good guys wherever they are and wherever we can. All right. Have a wonderful evening, and God bless you, my friend.
God bless you also, Mark. Thank you very much.
You bet. It's not a hard endorsement, America. Is it, Rich? The guy's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Now, this Obamacare, well, Mr. Producer went back to when did you go back? 2009, when this was first being discussed. And then 2012, when it was being rolled out and being implemented. In 2013, when it was already sucking the resources out of Medicare and out of the taxpayers. So I'm not going to play it all, but let's take a look at Cut 2. This is from 2012, January 2012, on the Mark Levin radio show. Cut 2, go.
There is no basis whatsoever in our history for this kind of a law. None. And we don't much give a damn if the masterminds think that it's the right thing to do or if they're seeking to balance budgets when they never do. None of that matters. They do not have the authority to do it. And the people who fought to create this nation, and then the people after we won the revolution who sat down and developed our Constitution and argued over it and then adopted it, sent it to the states for ratification. You know what's interesting about that? I think if it happened all over again today, these clowns in Washington wouldn't be sending anything to the states. They wouldn't give a damn about the states, would they? And yet the states had to ratify the Constitution or there'd be no Constitution. There'd be no federal court. There'd be no federal executive branch or Congress. There'd be no Supreme Court to decide whether or not individuals are free. This Obamacare lawsuit is about more than health care, although it's certainly about that. It's about a hell of a lot more than that. It's about whether there's any more line drawing when it comes to the power of the federal government. And basically the Obama administration predictably is arguing no. Well, they won't put it in so many words, but you and I know exactly what they mean, don't we? We know exactly what they're up to. You know, they're used to fooling us, pretending that they're not seizing power. And yet this, is a blatant power grab. Blatant.
Not only, folks, and back live, was Obamacare always an economic and policy disaster. It was unconstitutional. People forget it was a 5-4 vote with the Chief Justice switching at the very end. When that opinion came out on Obamacare, and I read it, we discussed this on the air at length. I told you something changed at the end. There's typos in here. There's almost half sentences here. They didn't have time to really do the thorough editing that the court does. That there was a last-minute switch, and I think it was Roberts. And as subsequent reports indicated, it was Roberts, and it was last minute. Even Justice Kennedy apparently went to the Chief Justice's office and tried to persuade him not to do what he did. So I just want to remind you that the court, under Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts, enshrined what is a disastrous health care program that blows the lid off the budget, that is also unconstitutional. And I'll insist that it remains unconstitutional, which was my point in 2012. And it is destroying the healthcare system. All of you, even those of you, most of you are not on Obamacare, you see your premiums going up. That has nothing to do with the market system. That has to do with Obamacare, the government system. And their fix for this is really to eliminate employer-provided or subsidized health care for all you folks who have it. That's their answer to this. And so a year later, September 2013, I said this, cut 3, go, please. We have been making the case day in and day out, objecting to this. It's bad enough that the federal government, using the Internal Revenue Service to muscle, to bully, to smother, to impose. It's bad enough that they're destroying the greatest healthcare system in the world. I have articles here in front of me. The Cleveland Clinic, one of the greatest hospitals on the planet. And I've been to the Cleveland Clinic when I was desperate with my heart problems. The fact that they're laying off hundreds of people. The hospital at Vanderbilt University laying off hundreds of people, closing hospital beds. This doesn't have to be. Obama is doing this. His radical ideology. The American people despise this, and it hasn't even been implemented yet. It is destroying our economy. It is destroying our job creation ability. It is draining the resources out of this nation. It is redistributing wealth from the private sector to this massive bureaucracy. And we're supposed to just take it. The lawlessness, the irrationality. And it has real human consequences for each and every one of us and our families. This is a disaster.
And people say, let's wait to fully implement it. What? How many lives are going to be affected negatively by this? How much misery should be spread in order to, well, let's see what the people think then? That's not how America's supposed to operate. One Congress for 2 years, that's all it was, to impose its will, and this president, this imperial president,
Obama,
he insists that no future Congress, not this one, not anyone, shall have the constitutional authority to reverse course.
there you have it. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
There's a reason I'm proud to say Pure Talk is my wireless company, because they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk, especially when it comes to supporting our veterans. This month, Pure Talk is choosing to support Canines for Warriors, an incredible organization that rescues and trains dogs, then pairs them with veterans struggling with PTSD. These are men and women who serve with honor, but when they come home, their brotherhood and support network they had in the military too often disappears. Canines for Warriors steps up to fill the gap, giving these heroes purpose, companionship, and healing. That's exactly why Pure Talk, a veteran-led company, supports them. Choose a wireless company that shares your values, and with talk, text, and plenty of 5G data for just $25 a month, you could also be saving a ton of money. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch today. Again, go to puretalk.com/LEVIN and switch to America's wireless company, my wireless company, Pure Talk. Okay, how much time do we have, Rick? Okay, we'll get it done. Mark must be killing time. I could do this for 10 hours. I'm not killing time. Here we go. Down to business here, kids. We'll be right back.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 1-877-381-3811. When you know, the last round of this Epstein stuff, when I said I'm not going to get into this, I think Carlson was saying, implicating that I didn't want to do it because Epstein was Jewish, Mr. Producer. I don't know if he was Jewish or not. What does that have to do with anything? Absolutely nothing. But that's what bigots and anti-Semites do. Has anybody actually read the emails released by the Democrats today? Have they? Like I've been going through with you. And they're highlighted by the media regarding Epstein. Have they? You know, there's nothing in there. The reporting is outrageous, and the headlines are grotesquely dishonest. The victim, whose name is redacted, is well known, as I mentioned, Giselle Maxwell. Isn't that her last? That's not her last name. What is her last name, Mr. Producer? Say it again. Yeah, I'm not sure why you sent me Giselle Maxwell. So what is her name? Spell that for me. Not Virginia, the last name. What is it? Giuffre. Virginia Giuffre. She testified under oath and under penalty of perjury that Donald Trump never so much as flirted with her. We also read the sleazy efforts by certain reporters to push a false narrative and smear Trump. So the question is, why did the Democrats release these emails? Why did they release them now? Why did they redact Giuffre's name? And why are the media acting like there's some bombshell? Well, we know why, because it's all an attempt to attack Trump. The, quote, release the files crowd, they remind me of the, quote, release the tax returns crowd. There was no wrongdoing in the president's tax returns, but they were leaked. and there was wrongdoing by Trump. There was none in the so-called Epstein files. Well, if there was wrongdoing by Trump in the so-called Epstein files, the question I keep asking is why wasn't a single example of wrongdoing raised by the Biden regime or anyone else? Even now. So why not release the files? Exactly what files are they talking about? And what of Epstein's victims? What of his victims? Do they get a say in whether files are released? Seems a lot more complicated to me. That said, the smearing of the president is utterly unwarranted. Totally unwarranted, even by his worst enemies and certainly by his supposed friends and allies. Totally unwarranted. We're going to go ahead and post this, Mr. Producer, now. I'm going to send this to you. And as I get attacked, I will read some of those to you tomorrow so you can see who his real enemies, our real enemies are, as they are obsessed with this, as they are with demons and UFOs and Jews and Netanyahu, Christian Zionists, Hitler, and the rest. It's that crowd, you see, that join in with the Democrats and the left. You understand this, America. Mr. and Mrs. America, you're out there. This is what we're dealing with. You understand it. Speaker Mike Johnson on CNN yesterday, which means nobody heard him because he was on CNN, so I will play this for you. Actually, I'm going to skip that, Mr. Producer. Let's go to number 6. He's on Capitol Hill today. He's had fantastic press conferences. He's been doing a great job communicating with the American people through a hostile press. Cut 6, go.
We believe the long national nightmare will be over tonight. It was completely and utterly foolish and pointless in the end, as we said all along. I just want to apologize to any Americans who are out there who still have flight cancellations or delays today. I want to apologize to the many American families who were made to go hungry over the last several weeks, our troops and other federal employees who are wondering where their next paycheck would come from. All of that's on the Democrats. Just never forget, they voted 15 times between the House and the Senate to close your government. And the Republicans tried every single day of the shutdown to open it. And we voted 15 times to do that. They have a lot to answer for. And I just want to say that we're very optimistic about the vote tally tonight. We think this is going to happen. And we're sorry that it took this long. So Republicans are going to deliver for the people. We're ready to get back to our legislative agenda. We have a very aggressive calendar for the remainder of this year. There'll be some long days and nights here, some long working weeks, but we will get this thing back on track.
You know, he's a soft-spoken man. He's a well-spoken man. He's a decent and kind man. And he's underestimated by these people all the time. And he wins every battle. So far, he's won every battle, in my humble opinion. Caroline Levitt at the White House press briefing today on this shutdown. Cut 7, go.
The damage caused by the Democrats with this reckless government shutdown cannot be forgotten. It is entirely the fault of the Democrat Party. Just look at the vote count. Hundreds of thousands of federal employees have missed their paychecks. Tens of billions in wages and benefits were withheld, impacting vulnerable families. Millions of low-income Americans missed their SNAP benefits. Nearly 20,000 flights at airports across the country were delayed due to staffing shortages, causing Americans to miss family events, vacations, and work obligations. According to Airlines for America, an estimated 5.2 million travelers have had their flights disrupted over the course of the Democrat shutdown. And our economy has lost billions and billions of dollars in economic activity over the course of this shutdown, hurting consumer sentiment and crushing the travel and hospitality industries.
Mm-hmm. But have the Democrats learned anything? This guy, I think he's running for the Senate. He's got more consonants in his name than I know how to pronounce. It's just not something I'm familiar with. Raja Krishnamurthy, I believe, Democrat, Illinois. That is a long bumper sticker, don't you think, Mr. Producer? And, of course, he's on the Constipated News Network today. Take a listen to this. Cut 9, go.
Today we are in the House and we're going to vote on this deal. I'm going to be voting no. There's still time for this to get righted. I think that it's going to be on razor's edge as it normally is in the House. And so I hope that your viewers speak up and ask Democrats to stand united and also get a few Republicans to flip as well.
When you talk about getting it righted, what do you mean? Amendments or voting this down?
I'd like to see it voted down. I want it voted down, and I think we got to go back to the drawing table. Look, the ACA tax credits are about to expire.
ACA, why don't you call it the Affordable Care Act under Obama? The tax credits are about to expire at the end of the year. Who voted to do that? The Democrats. How come no reporter ever says you voted for that? And they're not tax credits, they're subsidies. They just lie, they use the language, twist it into a pretzel, because they're all tyrants at heart. They just are. And they use the techniques of tyrants. So they created the plan. They created the budget. They created the massive subsidies. They created the 1 year cutoff at the end of this year. Now they're claiming it doesn't work, blaming the Republicans, want the subsidies. You understand, and I've explained this again and again, that a few years back, what the Democrats, what they did was they expanded the program to cover more people than just the poor and provided additional benefits, even while it was imploding. And now it's in an emergency situation, and they're saying, well, just give us more money so we can keep funding it. And the Republicans say, no, we want to fix this. Now, it's really quite hilarious to hear media personalities say, well, what's your fix? What's your fix? That's their point. Their point is we got to get through this, pass the continuing resolution so we can sit down with committee members who know this stuff and develop a plan that we can get support behind by the caucus. And what's your plan? What's your plan? We need to know your plan. What are you going to do? What's your plan? It's so Mickey Mouse out there. It's just so Mickey Mouse out there to me. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have our friend John Ellis. Was a great professor emeritus at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and he's written great books, and he's really focused on the pollution, the indoctrination, the brainwashing in our colleges and universities by radical faculty and administrators, and the destruction of the academic experience and knowledge. Isn't that right, John?
Yes, thanks for having me on again, Mark. It's the starting point for this piece I just did for the Wall Street Journal was that the discrepancy between what we fund the universities for and have always expected them to do on the one hand, and what they're actually doing, that discrepancy is now gigantic. I mean, it's a yawning gulf between the two. And I think future generations are going to look back at this time and think, well, why the hell didn't these people do something about this? Because the falling off from what the university is supposed to be doing is so noticeable. No one can miss it. I mean, on the one hand, you got the purpose of the university is obviously to be the storehouse of knowledge and experience and wisdom we've inherited from our predecessors in the Western tradition. And you've also got the fact that the universities are trying to inculcate in students analytical power and thinking power so that they'll be able to carry on that knowledge and build on it and extend it. Well, if you compare that motive with what's going on the campuses, which is they're being force-fed a rather minor little poisonous little sect's political opinion, the radicals, a fringe kind of opinion that doesn't have much currency in the wider world, or at least it ought not to, and although it is getting more because of the strength of the universities. But, I mean, the discrepancy between those two things is just ridiculous.
And you have a fairly aggressive idea on how to deal with this, because you're concerned, as am I, that really, without getting to the root of the problem, it's not going to get fixed, and especially after the president leaves, no other president's going to even make a run at this. So what is your idea?
Well, my idea is a very simple one. It's exactly what you do with a business. I mean, business is failing. What's the CEO doing? I mean, the CEO is not making sure that he has good department heads and that he has good planning departments. So you fire the CEO, you bring in a new one, and you tell him to clean the place up. And exactly that's what I'm suggesting. That to the legislature, especially of a red state like, say, Idaho, and there's no reason on earth why the legislature couldn't just say to a state university, we want this mess cleaned up. We want it reformed. We don't want a university that's behaving as if it was a recruitment office for radical politics. We want one that is genuinely about knowledge and thinking ability. And so you put in a new president, you give him a mandate to clean the place up, you make it clear to everybody who works on that campus that they better cooperate with him, because otherwise the campus will be defunded if they don't. And you give to that guy the power, which normally a president doesn't have, to hire his own vice presidents and deans, especially deans, because deans are close to the departments. And so you let that president bring in new administrators who've got one thing in mind, and that's to bring those departments up to standard. And so, say a dean of humanities, for example, I mean, his job would be to look into, say, a department of political science.
But what you're saying is, look, these colleges need to be transformed like a business.
Yeah,
and that
that's right.
somebody has to be in charge and has to dig in and have the power, regardless of contracts, regardless of seniority, regardless of it all, under state authority, to transform these failing businesses, these failing universities. Is that kind of the business model you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in no other walk of life would you allow a particular activity, a particular firm, to have an announced purpose of one thing, but that actually, when you look at it, is doing something totally different. You wouldn't allow that anywhere else. You wouldn't. I mean, if you hire a guy to come and fix your roof, you wouldn't be very pleased if you find he's decided to dig your rose garden instead. I mean, that's the kind of thing we're dealing with universities. A group of radical political activists have decided that they're going to take over the universities, use them for their own purposes, and forget about the business of bringing students up to speed with the current state of knowledge in the world, and forget about developing their thinking ability. All they want is, in fact, they want the reverse. They want students to shut down their thinking ability and believe what the professor tells them to believe. And they'll keep them, not only will they not promote knowledge, but they'll make very sure they don't get the knowledge that might cause them to question what the radical professors want. For example, it's obvious that, take Mamdani, for example, he's a pure campus product. I mean, outside the campus, he looks weird and new and original. On the campus, he's just like every other person on the campus who's speaking radical politics. So he's completely unoriginal, and obviously to have someone with those beliefs. That Marxism is wonderful, it really works, and it really does produce the goods for the people, and so on. What you have to do, obviously, is to keep students completely ignorant of the 20th century. You have to make sure they never find out that Soviet Russia tried communism and it fell apart because it doesn't work. And you make sure that kids never understand that the only way you can enforce communism, say in Eastern Europe, is by a military dictatorship with a pretty decent-sized secret police to crack down on people who start to get doubtful about it. So it's a very practical thing. I mean, I'd like to see that someone impose a new president, come in and simply tell people that, remind them what a university is supposed to be for. Tell them that they better get back to doing that, what university is supposed to be for, or they'll be fired.
You know, you're so right. This is a complete paradigm shift. You got to get in there, dirt under your nails. The state legislatures have the most power. They need to step in. I really want to thank you, John. You really have great ideas, very articulate about them. And I want to thank you very, very much, Professor John Ellis, Emeritus. Santa Cruz, man, you had to be one of a handful of rational thinkers there. God bless you. We're going to call on you again if you don't mind. That's Professor Emeritus John Ellis. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, radio's principal patriot. Call in now at 877-381-3811.
Well, America, the vote is over. In the past, the remnants of the government that had been closed will be open now, or at least in due course. The vote was 222 to 209. Obviously, some of the members couldn't get there, but 222 to 209, or they sat out. Now, 6 Democrats voted yes, and 2 Republicans voted no. Massey, of course, voted no. He's kamikaze. And Stubbe of Florida voted no because they couldn't take out the provision on allowing Republican senators whose liberties and privacy were violated by the Democrats and Jack Smith, the rogue unconstitutional prosecutor, on suing the government for recompense. The speaker said he'll try and deal with that after this vote, but we need to get this vote done. And he's right. So you have Massey and Stubbe who voted no, very foolishly, for whatever the reason. And on the Democrat side, 6 voted yes. Tom Suozzi of, I guess that's how you pronounce it, of New York. Suozzi, whatever. Henry Cellular of Texas. Marie Perez of Washington State. Don Davis of North Carolina. Adam Gray of California. And Jerry Golden is actually fairly moderate of Maine, Democrat. He's retiring for 2 reasons. One, he's getting threats and he doesn't think he can maintain his security. He's Jewish. He's a moderate Democrat. And 2, he's just decided that enough is enough. He wants to be with his family. So those 6 Democrats voted the right way. If 2 Republicans voted the wrong way, it's heading for the president's desk, and he's going to sign it. I just want people who vote Democrat, who work for the government, to understand that it's the Republicans who are getting you paid now, not the Democrats, not the Marxist Islamists who want this to go on forever. Just understand who did what. And that's the way it is. The president is expecting to sign it at 9:45 p.m. Eastern Time, which is not that, about an hour and 10 minutes away. Let's go to Mark, Savoy, Illinois, the great KZRG. Mark, go right ahead, please.
Yes, hi, Mark. It's a pleasure speaking with you. I hope you're having a good evening.
Great, thank you.
I wanted to just give you a shout-out about the those crazy kids from Chicago, the Emanuel brothers, Ram and Zeke.
Yes.
And are they? I haven't heard nothing from them or about them. Are they living a high life on yachts?
Well, you know, Ram wants to be president. He's been mayor. He's been chief of staff. He's made multi-millions. Now he wants to be president. Let's hope not.
Yeah, they need to have their. I believe they designed a lot of the Obamacare, didn't they?
Well, that's a great point. His older brother's a doctor and said horrendous things about the elderly. You know, your time comes. Why should we have these life-saving measures? And, you know, who is this a-hole? And he gave Obama advice. Yeah, you're right. All right, Mark. Great call. Much appreciated. Let's keep going. Bob, Stratford, Wisconsin, the great WTAQ, a great affiliate there. How are you?
Doing well, Mr. Levin. What the president needs to do before he signs it, demand that the leader of the House presents a one-item bill that says all federal employees except the military members have to go on the Affordable Care Act, which will save the government billions of dollars.
No, he can't do that. That would require legislation. It's not going to happen. So the president is not going to do that.
I'm saying he doesn't say through an executive order. They pass a bill through
He can't do that through an executive order. You're changing legislation. You have to amend it or have brand new legislation. So he's not going to do that.
Congress go.
Thanks for your call, Mr. Producer. What am I dealing with? I mean, they just went through this to know basic understanding of how this works. If you're going to change the law to require federal employees to be on Obamacare, then you got to get that passed through the House and the Senate and then sign it. Now, does anybody think that's going to happen? Do you, Mr. Producer? Does anybody else out there think that's going to happen? It took 43 days to get to this point. Anybody out there think that's going to happen? By the way, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I just don't go along with the, ideas of flight, I call them, which is, I have an idea. That's great, but your idea can't possibly work. It just can't. So I didn't want to go round 3, round 4 over it. It just doesn't work. Jeremiah, Nashville, Tennessee, Sirius XM satellite. Go right ahead, please.
Howdy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good.
Yes,
I was wondering, I had a quick question for you.
Yeah.
I think with the young people and the recent elections in 25 and the Democrats kind of winning all over the board, there's kind of a lot of concern going into 2026.
Well, first of all, the Democrats didn't win all over the board. The Democrats won in New York City, New Jersey, and Virginia, where they won, in the past, where they outnumbered the Republicans, and even worse than before. They didn't win a Republican state. It wasn't a marginal state. It wasn't a marginal city. So while there is concern about what took place, it's not suicide time. It just is what it is. Go ahead.
There was a 10-point gain with the Democrats now having a supermajority in the Virginia House of Representatives.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I was just curious if a vision kind of that Republicans can lean into is more of just public service. Basically, my job is to help provide you resources where appropriate, whether that be through legislation, whether that be through the executive offices or the state.
I have a better idea. Why don't Republicans govern like conservatives? And then maybe they'll have the success of the governor of Florida, or maybe they'll have the success of the governor of Texas. Florida was not a Republican state until DeSantis won by the skin of his teeth, and he's turned it into a Republican juggernaut. Texas many years ago was, of course, a sort of a, we used to call them blue Democrats, I guess, but they were moderate Democrats, but it was often Democrats would win. Lloyd Benson and others and so forth, Republicans would win too, but now it is a heavily Republican state, which they're trying to turn blue. In other words, look at Tennessee. They used to be a Democrat state. Now it's a Republican state. They don't have any tax level either. I'm not into this where people are talking like leftists who are talking about, we got to do something for the young people. We got to do something for housing. What we've got to do is reduce government regulation, zoning requirements, taxes on property, free up the system, like we do in some of these states. It's not anything that people don't know how to do, because I don't know what they're talking about. How much more money can we spend? How many more redistribution of wealth programs can we have? And I'm just one of those that say, look, what is it that we're supposed to do for quote unquote young people? What is it that I don't know. We subsidize student loans, and yet 2/3 of young people don't go to college. So what is it that we're supposed to do?
I think as a young person, it's more about messaging than anything. It's making people aware.
Our messaging is fine, but you have to have something to message. And messaging ambiguous stuff or generalities that, we want to figure out how to help you and so forth and so on. Why don't we just come up with programs in that regard? We can have relatively conservative and free market ideas on programs. That's what we need. We need to propose them. You've got DeSantis is now talking about a constitutional amendment to wipe out for residential areas the property tax. You have the governor of Texas talking about the same thing. These are wildly popular. Why? because they have an influx of businesses, they have an influx of tourism, they have an influx going on, which makes it a viable idea. And they have no income tax. Seems to me that should attract young people. But if it's socialism and Marxism that attracts young people, the problem isn't economic. The problem's not even political. The problem is educational and indoctrination and brainwashing, which is what Professor Ellis was just talking about.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for your call, my friend. And by the way, I know you're a young person. I know a few young people myself. We call them our kids. Right, Mr. Producer? Good calls. Nonetheless. Well, let's see if we can slip in one more here. Timothy, Dallas, Texas, on the Mark Levin app. Go right ahead, please.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I
sir.
appreciate you reading the quote from your book at the beginning of the show, and I think it ties into what the governor had to say, and that is there is this alliance in between Nick Fuentes and the Groypers and Scoopity Whoop Poop Poopy Scoopty Whoop Poop.
That's very
whoop,
funny.
Poop.
And the guy hangs on. How long has he been on hold, Mr. Producer? Guy's been on hold like an hour or two. Hey, you know what? What? I'm going to tell the Mark Levin show there is this alliance between the Groypers and Scoopity-Doo and Scoopity-Doo. And you know what? I could have cut that out, but I wanted you to hear it. I'm sure his family's very proud of him. Yes. We'll let some of those few from time to time. We'll let them through. We notice, Mr. Producer does, that the ones who wait the longest are the nut jobs. They just are. I really got to get through. I got to get through on this. I got to really tell him. And the guy didn't even sound that young, did he, Rich? 30s or 40s, maybe? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All right, watch this one, folks. Here we go. Matt, Charleston, South Carolina, Sirius XM. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, is this Mark?
Hello. Hello.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
Hello.
So, hello?
Hello.
Mr. Levin, can you hear me?
Matt, you're on. Go.
Yep. Yeah, so pretty much what I was getting at is you're talking about younger people, right? And why younger people aren't...
No, younger people were talking to me. I'm just responding.
Well, you're going to respond to what I'm saying, but I was calling in, I was listening to what you're talking about earlier. I just wanted to kind of add to the conversation, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a big sentiment out there that hey, we're not necessarily as younger people in America, what are we getting as in terms of a deal, in terms of a fair shake that's better?
I think that's right. You guys have it harder than anybody's ever had in your generation. It's terrible. It's horrible.
Better
Do you
technology.
have an iPhone?
Yeah, I have an iPhone.
Do you have a car?
So things like that, right? Yeah. So
do you have a job?
In terms of material,
hold on, I'm asking some questions. Do you have a job?
Things, right? Are
do you have a job?
I have a job. Of course, I have a job. Yeah.
Do you have health care?
Yeah, because I,
So you have health care, a job, an iPhone, a car. Where do you live? Do you live in a parent's home, an apartment, a house? Where do you live?
No, so I own my home, right? But
how did you do all this?
Because I'm a relatively hardworking, relatively smart guy.
Okay, you're a relatively hard worker who's acquired a home, a car, an iPhone, health care, and food. So how come you can do it and other people can't?
That's the question.
That's not the question. I'm raising it because people get down and out. It's not the first time. Rush Limbaugh, who became the Babe Ruth of talk radio, was poor for the longest time, and he was fired 7 times. I was unemployed for 11 months and lost almost everything. You got to fight. You got to work. You can't expect government to take care of it because government's not. I didn't turn to politicians and say, what are they going to offer me? I didn't say, what is this system going to offer me? The system offers you the freedom to go out there and do something about it. And that's the problem. That's what we're not teaching. Let me ask you something. Have you been drafted to Vietnam? Have you been drafted to the Korean War?
Drafted, right?
Have you been drafted into World War II? Your generation has not been drafted into any war. We have an all-volunteer military. So I guess I'm one of a few who says they have hard luck. It's hard. You got to work hard. Maybe you get an apprenticeship. Maybe you go to school. There's many, many ways you can do things. It's a free society. But there's a lot of hardworking people out there who are not young, who are trying to make ends meet, who are in their 40s and 50s and have families and they pay their taxes and they put a roof over their head. You don't hear them whining and complaining. And now I'm told that they have to subsidize people who are young because, well, they're down and out. I don't buy it, and I'm not going to buy it. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, and emergency personnel, and our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine and the men and women in Israel. God bless you, the American people, red-blooded Americans. I'll see you right here tomorrow. Take care of yourself.